Okay, so this talk is called Phones Are Computers. It's going to be a hectic talk. So, phones are computers. They're the same as your laptop. And I really mean that, but the state doesn't want you to know that. They're keeping secrets from you. So, first off, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Matthew Croughan, and I run Nix.how, which is a Nix software consultancy, and we just do anything, try to get paid for doing Nix. And I also run NixCamp, which we ran again this year, just a few days ago, and here's some pictures from that. We had a telepresence robot that we like to call the wheelie pad hanging out, and it is basically just an iPad on a stick with faces on it. And some people wanted their faces censored, so we used AI to do that, and we ran that AI with Nix. That's Max Headroom. He goes online by the alias Max Headroom. And here's Kranzis in his Nix lab coat. And there was like 24 people that showed up. So it's a cool event. And if you want to come next time, go to nix.camp and sign up early. So, phones are computers. But to understand that, we've got to understand where I began. So I met this guy. His name's Liam Kermos. He runs the astralship, astralship.org. It's an old chapel in the middle of Wales. And here is a point cloud scan of it. So this was my office for basically, well, that's disappointing, isn't it? I'm sure you can imagine an old chapel in the middle of Wales. Yeah. It's because I'm running on battery. Anyway, I'm sure you don't need to see that. You can imagine it. So, shortly after meeting that guy, I met this guy. That's Ben Ark. You may know him from 5 minutes ago. And I met him at CoinFest, and I tried to introduce him to Nix right there and then because this guy knew him. And I thought, you know, what better way to introduce myself to someone than talk about Nix? So I said, Nix is gluten-free, it's reproducible, you should be using it. And he basically just completely ignored me because he was busy. So, shortly afterwards, this guy says, we're going to EMF camp, which is a nice little event in, I don't forget where, East Nor, looks like. And it's on again this year, and you should come along. It's just like CCC camp and May Contain Hackers, MCH, camps like that. And that's where I encountered this beast. This is the Bitcoin beer tap, and it is the cheapest manner that I know of to attack Bitcoin. And it works. So people hang out around the tent and just get beers, get really drunk, and completely miss the point of Bitcoin. But it's a lot of fun. So, at EMF camp, I bumped into Ben Ark again, and I say, just try the goddamn Nix. Put on the goddamn glasses, man. And a few flakes, a few anarchist talks later, and a Raspberry Pi 400. And eventually I convinced him that this is a good idea. So he goes, do you want to come to Mallorca? So I head over to the Mallorca blockchain days, and Ben paid for it, and it was fantastic, and I met a bunch of lovely people there. And in the hotel room, I nixified LNBits, and he made this tweet about it. And it was on the Pi 400 there, that little keyboard computer, which I've still got with me, actually. Yeah. So I make this pull request, and here it is. You know, add Nix and poetry to the project. And it's a lot of waffle, but basically it just makes everything reproducible. But then, as Ben mentioned, it's reproducible, right? No. So the problem with just adding a flake to a project root is that people don't necessarily understand the maintenance cost of that, because they'll just say, okay, well, it's reproducible now, and then they'll add a really complicated C dependency or some native thing, and then it doesn't build anymore, and no one checks, no one cares, because they don't know what Nix is, and why should they, right? Because we haven't introduced it to them properly. But Nix does help, but it can't fix Python. So Python's the real underlying issue there, but it's gotten a lot better now because a lot less dependencies get added to the project over time, because it's kind of coming out of beta, becoming more stable, etc. And I mistook this for ignorance. I mistook this for people just not caring about Nix, but actually it's just because it's in development. So yeah, Nix will fail to help when you are inserting new dependencies every single day and you don't fully respect and understand the Nix. Like if you're not using Nix and you're adding a bunch of dependencies, the Nix is going to break, whereas your thing's not going to break because it works on your machine. Nix is a machine that works everywhere. And yeah, if you don't use that to test everything, then you're never going to know that it's broken. And that's indeed what happens. So Ben was like, I like that. It runs on the Raspberry Pi. So if he likes the Pi, what's he going to think of this? Boom. So I've got this phone here, and it runs NixOS completely, the same operating system that I'm running on the laptop, with no compromises. It runs everything exactly the same. And here it is with a more suitable keyboard. And yeah, your phone's a computer, believe it or not. So the phone only cost me £150, and it was released in 2018, and it has 10 gigabytes of RAM, and it's definitely not obsolete. I'm going to try and prove that to you. So now that we've got a phone that is actually a computer rather than just trash that runs Android, we can actually run all of the Bitcoin software, we can run all of Nix Bitcoin, and we can run LNBits on it. Well, here's a few use cases first. So there's the Nix phone plus the glasses. Now let me just go in here, I can show you a video of that. Phones are computers. Oh, that's the wrong thing. Oops. Yeah, so here is a preview from a video that I'm making. So these are some Nreal Air glasses, and you can put them on. And you can look around, and you can have terminals all around you. And it looks like this. Right? And that is the future. The future is... The future is wearing a pair of glasses, going to work, and having no desks, and just standing there. And you can have keyboards on your thighs and stuff like that. But I mean, imagine a future where your Bitcoin wallet's like on your glasses, and if anyone comes to take it, you can just crunch the glasses with your fingers and it's all gone. It's interesting because like the size of computers actually makes a big difference in your life, I think. What else have I got to show off? Oh yeah, of course, because it's a computer, you can plug it into a monitor and just use it like a normal computer. And it is genuinely, in my view, just as powerful, if not more powerful than my laptop. So I hope you're all getting some ideas about how you can use this, because that's the point. So the piece of software that I just used to demonstrate like the multi-monitor experience in the glasses is called Stardust XR. It's a Rust program. Yeah, it's open source. You can find it on GitHub. So another novel use case is the headpiecer, when you're too poor to get one of those. And you can just put this phone in front of you and just use a Bluetooth mouse and keyboard, and that kind of works. It sucks, but it kind of works. And the keypiecer, which is where you just got a keyboard and the glasses, and yeah. You can also run Windows 10 on it. Not that you would want to, but you can. And by the way, we can also run Android on top of NixOS, and that's no problem, and I'll demonstrate some of that. So now comes the demos. So I just want to explain to everyone what a NixOS configuration actually is. A NixOS configuration is when you describe your computer in terms of basic English. So this would be a flake.nix. Let's actually call it that so the language server takes effect. Right. So in a flake you have inputs, which says what version of NixOS you want to use. And then you have some outputs, and one of the outputs is going to be anything that's passed in, Nix packages, that's it. And our NixOS configuration for my computer is as follows. It's the result of a function call. And it's going to be an x86 system like my laptop. And in it, we're going to have some modules or Nix files that we want to include. And what are we going to do? Well, we're going to just put it in here because I don't want to make another file. This is the contents that the file would be if it was a file. Services.bitcoin.enable equals true. It's actually bitcoind. And that will enable the Bitcoin daemon. Well, because of what we've done with LNBits, we can just do this. And now we can say inputs.lnbits.url github lnbits/lnbits. Pop it into the outputs. And now we can say services.lnbits.enable equals true, and that will just work. I'm going to give a demo of that working later. But just so people understand the syntax of Nix, this is how simple it can be. Okay? What's next? LNBits on the phone. Can we ping the phone? We can ping the phone. Okay, so let's SSH into the phone. Let's become root. It's all a bit messy, but I'm just going to show you what the config looks like. So I have a folder called phone. It's got a configuration.nix in it. And we've got the LNBits API key, which you're not allowed to see. And we've got LNBits.nix. And we're just going to include those files in the config and do a NixOS rebuild switch. So what's in hosts phone LNBits.nix? That's it. So that's how we configure the LNBits. And if I do a NixOS rebuild switch now, like so, and I'm telling it not to use builders because I don't want it to go to the internet, I want it to do everything locally. And in a few moments, we're going to have LNBits on the phone, so you should get your Lightning wallets ready because I'm going to make an invoice. What have we got after that? Oh.
On your laptop, to the phone?
Yeah, I've just SSH'd into the phone. And everything I'm doing right now is on the phone. You can see here it's rebooting the phone. Well, not rebooting, but...
So the phone's doing a pull.
What's that, sorry?
No, it didn't locally rebuild.
No, the phone built locally. It's running NixOS. It's the same as my laptop. All I did was a NixOS rebuild switch on the phone. And so now the phone has applied those changes that I just asked for. And I can go to phone 8231, and there's LNBits. So if anyone wants to connect to that and prove it to themselves, it's on the local network, and its IP address is that. If anyone wants to go to it, yeah, 202.209. So let's make a new wallet, blah wallet. And is it possible that if I create an invoice, someone can pay it using the QR code scanner? So let's say 20 Satoshis.
What's the
8231. See, I better get my talk over with quick before someone hacks it, Ben. Okay, so has anyone paid that yet?
Well, it's trying to send now.
No, I do have a wallet. There we go, 20 sats. There it is. All right, that's all running on the phone. So I didn't actually have the time to set up my own Lightning network daemon, but there's technically no reason we can't do it on the phone entirely. And with secure boot and other mechanisms, we could actually make it so you could have a secure point of sale that even if the point of sale was stolen is completely inert, because by the time it powers off, you'll need to boot back in, full disk encryption, secure boot, etc. Yeah. So what else is next? Where have my slides gone? Llama on the phone. Okay, so let's SSH back into the phone again. And we're going to run some large language model stuff. Demo 1 Llama. It does take a while on the phone. So how do we do that? Well, we do a Nix build or a Nix shell on Llama CPP, which has already got a flake at the root of it, and now I can use it on the phone. Because with Nix, you write the expression for it, and it runs everywhere. Could even run on RISC-V. So let's run Llama. And you guys can all log into this as well, if you've still got the IP. It's going to be on port 8080. Phone 8080. So there's Llama CPP. So this is very slow, so I'm just going to let it happen in the background and we'll see what it comes up with. Please insult Docker. My career depends on it. So I'll just see what it comes up with. We'll be back in a minute. It's like sending an email to my phone. So yesterday I got a foot infection, or at least I thought I did, so I went to the hospital and waited 10 hours. And I installed Nix on Droid because why not, right? And the hospital had good Wi-Fi, and I was working on getting LNBits working on the Nix phone, but also on Android. So Nix on Droid is an Android app that you can install, and you can use Nix on it. And this is what the result looked like. Here's my laptop, and on the bottom left is my Android phone running Nix on Droid, and on the right is the real Nix phone running real NixOS. And they're all doing exactly the same thing. They're all running LNBits, right? So this is something, if anyone's got an old Android phone, they can use it for LNBits, which is my next slide. So the point of all of this is to say that old Android phones and phones that can run NixOS, they can all do exactly the same thing, and they're really ubiquitous. And they're like USB cables at this point, right? Like, you've got an old phone hanging out somewhere, so you can just spin up a point of sale. Yeah. Go wild. I'm going to do that. Okay. So I just wanted to show more of what the phone is capable of. So let's see if we can get rid of this. And you swipe from the top right. And turn the keyboard on. And now I'm using the phone. Okay, so it is just new fetch. Yeah, it's NixOS. It's on a 1+6T. Yeah, this thing's been up for 17 hours. And it's got, like I say, it's got 10 gigs of RAM. So yeah, very powerful stuff. So let's run Super Mario 64.
It's me, Mario.
This is actually a decompilation of Super Mario, so it's actually running natively on the phone. It's not an emulator, although the phone's perfectly capable of emulation and more. So let's kill that, and we can now maybe run. It's kind of hard without obscuring the phone. We can run Blender. So, how many people knew phones were this powerful? So that's like a cube, so whatever. So let's run a more intensive thing. Like an Elko prism. Now, of course, I can run the Bitcoin daemon on this thing, but I've only got 256 gigabytes of disk space, but that'll change. And at that point, there's nothing stopping me. What, did we just crash Blender? That's disappointing, isn't it? I swear to God, it doesn't do that all the time. Yeah. Run FreeCAD. Run Basilisk. Right. Oh crap, FreeCAD's starting up. That interface isn't very usable, is it? Let's launch a burn cycle game. Burn cycle's a cool game, who's heard of it? So yeah, phones are computers. Is anyone not convinced yet? Oh, I've got to kill it. Kill the basilisk. How do you do that? There we go, it's dead. This is what I meant by going crazy. DOSBox for all the Windows lovers. Yeah, got the same software installed on that. Oh, it's made a, oh God, it's really getting angry, isn't it? It says that Docker's an overhyped, poorly designed, bloated piece of software that's more trouble than it's worth. Does anyone agree with that? So it's like having a brand new sports car, but instead of driving it around, you just keep it in your garage and look at it. So yeah, my phone can make insults now. So yeah, this is all possible thanks to mobile.nixos.org, and a lot of work is inherited from PostmarketOS, who do the real kernel development that makes the hardware work correctly. And what about watches are computers? Because the author of Mobile NixOS got all of this working on a watch as well, so there is technically no reason that a smartwatch couldn't run a Bitcoin daemon as well, and Neutrino, and lots of other Bitcoin software. And if you actually want to run this, like as a personal device, this is the diff to my Flake, if anyone's familiar with Flakes already. I just add Mobile NixOS and then define a phone with it down here. And it's then able to run all the same software that my laptop can with exactly the same set of expressions. And the desktop environment I'm using here is called SXMO, and it makes it usable as a phone. And Android, how do we do that? Oh, I haven't even gotten to that yet. Let's see if that works. So I'll just do Waydroid, show full UI, and see what happens. We'll see if that appears. But yeah, it's called Waydroid, and that's how we use it, just like that. And if we want to run LNBits, that's how we run LNBits. And if we want to run Bitcoin, that's how we do it. And if we want to run LND, that's how we do it, right? That's the goal, is to make it this simple and have a lot of inherited wisdom from the people who authored these modules and have them figure all of that out for us so that we can just enable it and get going. And there's Android. Yeah. Let's full screen that. So we got Android here running on the Nix phone. It's pretty smooth. We got F-Droid on Android running under NixOS. We can browse around. It's not the most exciting demo, this, is it? Oh yeah, the Godot game engine. I can run the Godot game engine on Android under NixOS, and that works. Right? And then I do that to get it back. Yeah, still a bit finicky, really. Oh no. Something else has gone wrong. Maybe it ran out of battery finally after 17 hours of uptime. Oh no, it's back. It's back. It was just the screen. Well, I'll give up at this point. Can't all go well. It really went on about Docker, hasn't it? It just doesn't like it. It's like so yeah, your phone's a computer. It's more than enough for most people, and that's kind of my talk.
That's why the screen blank, by the way. It was pausing to take a deep breath before getting into the next part.
And this is when everyone
But that
else
Llama
does the
blank.
rest of the copy it needs.
All right, actually, I can show you, like, from scratch provisioning LNBits, right? And the way that we'll do that is I'll just SSH into my little service that I've made, where when you SSH in, it just spawns a VM straight away. And it'll attach us to a QEMU instance, and then we're in NixOS, and we can play around and demonstrate things. There we go. Shell incoming in 3, 2, 1. Man, it takes a long time to boot. Okay, there we go. So in etc NixOS, we've got our flake. And in that flake, we're going to have to add LNBits, but we don't have Vim. We're going to get Vim. And once we got Vim, we can then go ahead and express how we want to get LNBits from LNBits' own flake, and then create a system out of it just by using some Nix code. We're going to do a NixOS rebuild switch. Okay, so in the inputs, we're going to add LNBits, LNBits/LNBits. And then outputs, we're going to let LNBits into the system. And in our system, we're going to have a bunch of Nix files. One of those Nix files is going to come from LNBits. LNBits.nixos modules.default. The default NixOS module is being given to us by LNBits. And now that we have that, because of importing that, we can finally do services.lnbits.enable equals true. And now we can do a NixOS rebuild switch. And what we just asked for will become true. It will reproduce the whole thing. In the meantime, whilst this is deploying, has anyone got any questions?
I had one.
Yeah.
On your NixOS switch, you didn't have to specify --flake.
That's because it's in etc NixOS. It picks flakes up from there automatically. It's just kind of an inherent default.
Okay.
Yeah. Any questions? Yeah.
Stupid question. Can you run Nix on Android on your Nix Android and then run Android again and Nix on Android again?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that will work just fine.
Wow.
However ridiculous it is. Of course, Android in that case is actually just running as a Linux process. It's not a VM or anything like that. It's actually running as a container inside of Linux. So everything runs almost better because it's using the host's kernel. It inherits the performance properties of that. Like, it gets better over time. Yeah.
I have a question. What's the name of the phone you are using?
It's a OnePlus 6, and it's from 2018, and it cost £100.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It is, and just imagine, and it's all part of the SDM845 chipset, which is a lot of phones. There's actually a whole class of phones that are just like this that can do everything that this phone can do. Yeah.
Because I remember playing with NixOS Mobile like 5 years ago, and there weren't just a lot of good phones. So that's great. And other question, you mentioned this glasses thing. What are the specs of these?
They're like 1080p glasses, but I actually have them on me, so if anyone wants to try them out, you can.
Okay, thank you.
So still reproducing that LNBits there. There's a lot of Python dependencies. A lot.
So you said phones are computers, but what about iPhones? You didn't really mention anything about iPhones.
U-phones.
iPhones.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I know of one person running an i686 emulator on an iPhone, and that can run Nix. So there is a way to run Nix on the iPhone, but it's not great. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Could you use the SIM card, have cellular reception?
Yeah, all of that works. The only thing that doesn't work is the camera and NFC. But that's not going to be the case forever because people are working on it in the open source.
Could you also make phone calls without like SIP?
You can make phone calls, yeah. Another thing I thought about is that you can actually you could do IP over GSM, because if you've got two Nix phones, I could just give someone internet in America if I've got free calls, for example. Like I could just call them and then do like dial-up over that GSM connection because the clients are controlled. Yeah. That's a lot of dependencies, Ben.
For the device support, you mentioned that you're inheriting stuff from post-market, but the set of supported devices is smaller than what post-market supports. I guess what's the gap here? Or?
Yeah, there is a gap. So there's a few phones which you can find out, mobile.nixos.org/devices, and then you can figure out what phones are supported. But porting them is not that hard if post-market OS already has them. And in fact, we kind of rely on that. We rely on post-market OS having support first before we even bother making a mobile NixOS thing work. Yeah. Has anyone pushed to LNBits in the past 2 hours? This might be why it's taken a while. Right, there we go then. So it's actually got to reproduce a lot of stuff, whereas previously it came from a cache. Yeah. So this may not finish before the talk's over, but you get the point. Once this is done, LNBits will be on the machine, and we can just go in and play with it. Yeah.
For all the Python dependencies, are you able to do fancy stuff like the intermediate caching?
For Fedimint, because we use Rust, is that we can reuse all the intermediate caching and stuff when we're doing the builds? Can you do that with Python too, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so the problem here is that LNBits doesn't have a CI that caches everything, so we have to reproduce everything from scratch every time we do the Nix command. But that's fixable. We just have to host that infrastructure to do that. Because right now it is sovereign. It's building everything from source, including some of the Python cryptography library, things like this, right, on this fresh VM. So what you're looking at right now is basically Gen 2. There's no cache happening. Yeah. All right, cool. I guess that's the talk then. And yeah.
One more question. One last question.
Yeah.
Your VM spawner, can the VMs share the same Nix store so that it kind of caches everything between them? Or
I'm working on that, but yeah, I don't think this one does, which is part of the reason that this isn't caching anything. Right? This is all fresh. So yeah, it's just a matter of configuration, but it can. Okay.
Thank you.